pungent, much punchier. Wiggle your hand around.
Very grassy, very fresh.
There's so much myth and mystery in olive oil, and so I want to help you sort the fact from the fiction and understand exactly what you're doing when you're making the way to the till or checking out your bottle of olive oil online. Hi, I'm Nicola. I'm the founder of Sous Chef, and I've been choosing extra virgin olive oils for over a decade. It's one of my favourite ingredients. It's something I use every single day, and making sure you have the best one is really, really important to me. I'm a qualified olive oil sommelier. I've tasted thousands of olive oils, and that's helped me really understand the difference, and I want to share that knowledge with you. I'm going to run you through the most important things to think about when choosing an olive oil, and also to understand your olive oil when you get it home. So firstly, I'm going to talk about how do you taste an olive oil? What are the things you're looking for in a good versus great olive oil, and what is in a truly terrible one? How you might choose your own bottle, what you compare it with, and also just some of the different flavours of olives that you might expect from different countries. So first of all, I want to run you through what you would do in an olive oil tasting and talk about how people will do it professionally, but also how you might do that at home. So these special blue glasses are things you might see if you're tasting a really good olive oil in front of the producer. They're a standardized size, so that means when you taste olive oil side by side, you'll really be able to tell the difference between different oils. So first of all, I'm going to measure out 15 millilitres into one of these glasses. And you'll see I've got a piece of paper in front of me. And of course, the most important thing when you're putting out a set of olive oils to try is to make sure you label them so you know exactly what you're tasting, you don't get them mixed up. So I'm just going to pour a similar amount of oil. And then you have these special little hats. They're called watch glasses, and that's what you put on the top, so you can really keep the aroma inside. So to taste an olive oil, and this is how you do it professionally, you hold the watch glass on the top, you hold your hand underneath, and you might rotate the oil around a little bit, and that means more of the oil is in contact with your hand, and that heats it up. And you want the olive oil to get to around mid-20s degrees, and that releases many more of the aromas, so it makes it much easier to taste. See, I'm holding the watch glass on the top so it doesn't slip off, and also that keeps the aroma in. So then I take the watch glass off, I put it to my chin to smell. And if you can smell it when it's at your chin, then you know that's intense extra virgin olive oil. And this is an intense olive oil. If you hold it to your mouth and then you can smell it, that would be medium. And if you have to hold it right up to your nose, then that's going to be much milder. So the things you're looking for when you're smelling an olive oil is really fruitiness. And fruitiness, I mean, that's the olive fruit. You should get some kind of intensity of smell. So the thing that affects the fruitiness of oil is the olive variety, but also the time of harvest. So if you harvest the fruit quite early when it's unripe, it'll smell very, very green. And as time goes on, the olive oil starts turning black. That becomes a ripe olive, and so that'll smell much more ripe. It'll be much more ripe fruit. So that's what you're smelling for when you're smelling. Kind of, does it smell fruity? And is it green fruit or is it ripe fruit? So it's quite green. It's slightly nutty actually, and you can look for some almonds, some nutty aromas as well. It's not super green. I'm not getting any wet wood or grass. When you taste an extra virgin olive oil, you draw it into your mouth, you kind of drink it, and it's very much like a wine tasting. You suck it in, you get some air in at the same time. You might make a funny noise, which is a little bit embarrassing, but that's okay. Anyway, that's my silly funny noise. There's a couple of things I'm looking for. When it enters your mouth, is it sweet or bitter? You're looking for the astringency level on the surface of your tongue. Is it kind of drying? And you're also looking for that pungency. And that's that kind of at the back of your throat, pepperiness. That's the pungency. And different olives and different methods of production will make all of those things quite different. And the final thing, obviously, which is probably the first thing, is actually the fruitiness. And do you get some of those lovely aromas? Do you get olive? Do you get cooked fruit or ripe fruit? Do you get green grass? Or do you get more like sweet almond or ripe tomato? Which of those flavours are you looking for? So as you taste, you'll look for them. That gives me a good way of moving on to thinking about food pairing. If you have a very, very light extra virgin olive oil, that will typically be something which goes really nicely with a light food. That might be something you'd pair with fish, with maybe salads, with mild vegetables. Or you might want something much punchier. And so somewhere where they eat a lot of meat in places like Tuscany, there tends to be some of those much more pungent, much punchier olives that you drizzle over a pasta dish, maybe as an alternative to pepper almost. You can even pair olive oil with chocolate. When I was recently in Portugal, they had this incredible dessert of dark chocolate mousse sprinkled with salt and then drizzled over with extra virgin olive oil. So what's the difference when you taste an extra virgin olive oil and you smell one between a excellent, outstanding, exceptional extra virgin olive oil and an okay extra virgin olive oil. And really, it's all about that wow. Does this really make you go, yeah, I really want to taste this again? It's incredible. When you smell the extra virgin olive oil, do those aromas and that intensity of aroma match what you're tasting? If you had a very light flavour but intense pungency, again, that would feel slightly out of balance. So you're looking for balance across your extra virgin olive oil. And the other thing is, once you finish tasting it, does it stay? And you're really looking for length, and that's something that sticks around and makes you kind of happy and thinking about it. So how do I choose an extra virgin olive oil? When you're looking at something in the supermarket, when you're looking on a shelf, without tasting it, you really know very little. But these are some of the things you can look out for. So one of them is you want to see a harvest date on the bottle, and that tells you how fresh the extra virgin olive oil is. Typically, harvests are in September, October, November, December, maybe even through to January, February. And so from that date, you typically see a shelf life of 18 months on the bottle. The second thing to look out for is you ideally want to have an olive oil in an opaque bottle or something that lets less light in. So this dark green glass is a very popular choice, also brown glass, something like a tin or something like terracotta. It reduces the chance of degradation, and that's what you're always worrying about in any type of oil. You want to keep it as fresh as possible. Another thing to look for that you can check for are single countries of origin. Some producers do blend different countries' oil to get a consistent type of oil with a consistent flavour at a consistent price point, but also it can be the sign of a poorer quality extra virgin olive oil. And so just, that's something that you can get good ones, but other ones are less good. So I would often look for a single country of origin if I didn't know that producer. I might also look for an IGP status, and that can have a number of different rules around it, how far the trees are apart, at what age of tree you have to harvest the oil, what types of olives grow from a particular region. And you just know that if someone has that IGP status, they probably are having to just be a little bit more careful with the processing of their olives and how they make that oil. When you're looking for a good extra virgin olive oil, you might also look at whether something's won an award, whether it's in international rankings. Those things all help to find a good producer. Ultimately, I would just go to someone you trust, who you think has tasted the oil, and will choose good oils for you. Sometimes you might notice some other flavours that are just not so good, and these are really faults in extra virgin olive oil. It might start tasting kind of muddy, and that can be because the olives have been left on the ground too long before harvesting or during harvesting. It might start tasting winey, kind of almost like a vinegar flavour, and that's when they've been maybe left before they're processed or before they're crushed a little bit too long, and they can start to ferment earlier. That can also be a little bit mouldy, a little bit musty, a little bit fusty. You might also smell some defects. So the thing you have to really watch out for is rancidity. And that's just, you'll be so familiar with that smell. It's if you leave nuts out for too long, maybe your roasted seeds you've got in your cupboard and nearing their expiry date, you've left a bottle of vegetable oil by your stove. That gives you a kind of slight bitterness, a sourness. You can smell it if you're used to it, but when you taste it, you'll really notice. It leaves a horrible bitter aftertaste in your mouth. And that's probably the most common fault in any type of cooking oil, in nuts, in extra virgin olive oil. The moment you sense it, put it in the bin. And so many extra virgin olive oils that I've tasted, even when they're in date, if they get a little bit too warm, there's too much air in the bottle, they haven't travelled very well, or there's something about the production that means they go rancid quicker, then they'll actually be bad. And so you always want to be looking out for that. Which country should I buy extra virgin olive oil from? Really, this is very subjective. Olive oils do vary by country, but ultimately it's a couple of other things that make the most difference. One is the variety of olive, and the second thing that makes a very big difference is the processing. If I were to be very generalised, I probably would say some of the Greek oils are a little bit nuttier. They can be quite intense and quite pungent, but have that kind of nutty delicateness often. In Italy, it's very much a country of two halves. In southern Italy, you're going to get much more pungent, much more robust olive oils for meat, for stronger food. In the north, you might have much more delicate extra virgin olive oils. If you go west into France and you're going into Provence, actually you can get from Provence some very mild extra virgin olive oils. And then Spain's also extremely variable. Two of the biggest extra virgin olive oils in Spain are from Arbequina olives and also Picual olives. And Arbequina is actually the milder extra virgin olive oil, and Picual is much more intense. People often ask about extra virgin olive oils and health, and there are two things that come up a lot. The oleic acid is one of them, and the antioxidants, which are the polyphenols in extra virgin olive oil, is the other thing that you're looking for. A very high quality extra virgin olive oil will have good amounts of both of these things. One of the other things I'm asked a lot is, can I use extra virgin olive oil in cooking? Different varieties of olives have different smoke points. So something like picual, like Koroneki, have a much higher smoke point. And so that means actually the oleic acid will degrade much, much, much more slowly. And so when we talk about degrading extra virgin olive oil, it's just reducing the levels of some of those healthy things like the antioxidants, the oleic acid. So I poured out a few different glasses of extra virgin olive oil for some of my colleagues to taste. First of all, hold your hand underneath it. You want to warm up the oil. Hold your other hand over the top. Wiggle your hand around. Hold it up, smell it. So to me, it's quite a nutty oil. It's not very green. A little bit of greenness. I don't know. What are you guys getting?
Wheaty, almost. Toasty, sort of. Yeah, sort of.
It's quite a smooth smell. It's not pungent.
Okay, so then you can taste it. So that's normal. You probably can feel a little bit down the edges of your tongue.
It builds at the end, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got, it's kind of sweet actually on the tip of your tongue. It's quite sweet. You've got not a lot of bitterness, but then when you get it down your throat, it's pretty pungent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's got quite a
definitely.
bit of pungency. The next one, give it a go.
Yeah, it's like very grassy, very fresh, and nice and fragrant.
Yeah, I'd say the main thing I'm getting is definitely sort of grass and tomato leaves.
It's lovely. It's that cut grass. You kind of almost get some herbs, quite aromatic. Maybe a little bit of sage, I'd say. And then when you taste it, it's really similar, isn't it? You get kind of the same level of intensity of aroma in the mouth, and that's, you know, part of that sense of balance.
Yeah, it starts off really smooth, and then the pepperiness sort of builds throughout. It's really nice.
Technically, the pungency, you might say.
There you go. Yeah.
Now that we know. And the last one, that's quite a mild one. It doesn't really have a lot of aroma.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have a lot of flavour. And that's the kind of supermarket kind of blend of many different countries' oil that you kind of you can't really get very much from.
Yeah, the first two were definitely a lot more robust in flavour, a lot more pungent, a lot more pepperiness, you know, freshness of the oil. You can definitely tell the difference between those ones for sure.
Thank you so much for watching. I've talked through how you taste an extra virgin olive oil, how you store it, how you might choose your own bottle, what you compare it with, and also just some of the different flavours of olives that you might expect from different countries. I hope now that you know a little bit more about extra virgin olive oil and have heard some of the facts and the myths, that you can choose the bottle that's best suited for you. And I hope it becomes less of a minefield and more of a pleasure.